Hey all, Toves here, playing some more Planet Zoo. So this is our second episode on the channel, and it is, following the first episode where we did the animal hospital type thing, which if you watched that, thank you very much. So we're back at the zoo today. I'm trying to think of a good name for it, but I haven't actually quite come up with one yet. I think maybe it's going to be Timbuktu after I think it's a place in Africa. I can't remember what country it's in exactly. But yeah, a bit of a weird name because obviously this is it's supposed to be in temperate UK, which is it's about to start raining, so you'll see it definitely is in the UK. And there we go, right on cue. So in this episode, we're going to be working on, you will have seen it from the thumbnail, but we're working on the monorail station. So I wanted to get in early. I thought to myself, early on, I want to make sure that near enough to the entrance for people to be able to actually use it. I want to have a central kind of monorail station. So and I haven't played Planet Coaster very much before, so I'm not really very familiar with this stuff. So it took me a while, and the bits you've seen so far in the speed build here are just building a little log fence there, just a little barrier from my staff path, and then here is me wrangling with the queue system. So you'll see it, and you'll have seen it in the thumbnail. So there's no spoilers here, but my plan was to have the rail go just over the top of the path there. So I've done this sunken path that you can see here. This is me wrangling with the queue. It seemed to say it was unhappy with it, and then I changed something there, and it turned it to a curve and seemed to fit in. I have actually changed this a bunch, because if you look at where I've placed this, this is one of those things, not really being super familiar with the way these things work, I didn't actually realise that there was a limitation. Well, there was at the time. I feel like maybe this changed, but there was a limitation between the platform size and the number of carriages you could have. I feel like that has now changed because they seem to now they queue up behind the station. But at the point I was building this, you had to have a platform long enough basically to fit in the number of carriages, and that seems to be the limit. So actually at the point where I'm building this, you'll see it again in a second, but I've basically built it too close to the edge of the map, and so kind of get myself in a problem. So if you see a difference between what's in the thumbnail or what you'll see at the end of the video to what I've actually just showed you there, then that's the reason. So I'm trying to now, the plan was also to have this kind of to actually put my first proper habitat in. So I'm now working on, this was the idea of this is the start of like a wetlands area. So I've already recorded a bunch of these episodes, and you'll see a bit more of this as I go through, but this is me starting to put in my first water enclosure. So it's going to actually be for saltwater crocodiles, which is the next episode. So this is me just kind of putting in, I've dropped the train a bit here. My original plan was actually to see if I could flood the whole of this area under the path. I don't actually manage it in this case, but again, I've recorded another episode coming up in a little bit where I have managed to do that, and I've managed to include that all in as part of the enclosure, which is really cool and really what I was trying to do here. So just did a bit of glass work just to kind of get this area closed off, and there you go, I've got the water in now. Then we're doing some rock work. So this is all sort of part of the the surrounding of this station. And in order to get what I wanted out of the station, I felt like I needed to have a bit of a feel as to what this habitat was going to look like. So yeah, I jumped backwards and forwards a little bit in this episode, and I think that's partly just the way I'm playing. I'm playing a little bit like an excited school child with my my new toy actually at the zoo. So I'm sort of go over and do something. I'm like, oh, that looks cool, I'll do that, and then I start do something, and then I go, oh no, actually go stay on topic. So weirdly, and you may see this come out in the videos a few times, what I have done is I have tried to cut that back into episodes where they make sense. So you may see things in the background that sort of feel a little bit out of sync. For example, I think in the first episode, my avatar was queuing in the queue for this thing I'm building in this episode. So it's all a little bit out of sync, but I think it will make sense. Let me know if it feels a bit weird that I'm doing that. I am cutting a lot in the time lapse. This is me. I think one of the lovely things about the terrain tool is the fact that you can blend them together. So doing this kind of I'm paying real care and attention here to what's actually going to be underwater. But I think just blending them together makes a difference and makes it a bit more. Just gives it a bit more richer texture. It gives you a bit more option for it to be realistic. So now we're starting on this. The way I'm playing is probably not massively appropriate to franchise mode, but and I do get myself in problems. I actually have just dealt with some financial issues in this game. So I'm recording this actually quite a long time after I'm recording the audio bit here quite a long time after I actually made this recording. So I have, my actual zoo at the time of recording is quite a long way further on than what you're seeing in this video, if that makes any sense. But yeah, so I've got myself in kind of financial problems from doing these kind of, I think just kind of doing this level of detail. But, and I said in the last episode, I'd much rather just do it to a point where I'm happy. And not have to fill everything back in at the end. I know a lot of people tend to do that they record and they do a load of the work and then they come back and they have episodes where they kind of just finish in the detail. I may do some of that, but I'm going to try and where I can cut together, as I said, me doing the detailing, even if actually in reality those are happening at sort of different times. So here I am making a little bit of a flower bed. These little wooden pieces are really lovely, and I love the mulch, and I'm actually going to use a lot of them. The mulch, I love, just partly because I just love saying that word, mulch. Something quite satisfying about it, weirdly. And I think maybe when I watch other guys, like I'm watching some of the amazing people making stuff in this game. Like Geekism is just, the stuff that he's producing is amazing. And when I watch his episodes, I sort of think sometimes part of the knack is knowing what you can get away with and what you can hide. Like he puts incredible amounts of detail in, but I think he knows from experience of playing Planet Coaster when you kind of have to accept that you don't need to go too over the top with the detail, because you can in a lot of ways you're going to cover things up anyway. So here we are back at this. I left those two signs blank. I mean, it looks a bit weird there, but I left those two signs blank because I don't really like the font. And the font size that you get in the game and the actual quality of the font is really big and not particularly clear. So I prefer, I decided just to leave them blank. I felt like they looked better than actually having the text on, because what I wanted on there was really like a bit about boarding times and ticket prices or something, but you can't do that because there's not enough space. You can't get enough characters on before it starts to break. So just filling in some of the foliage. So I thought, I don't know if this is right, and again, excuse me if this is my ignorance of the way that the mechanics in the game work. I felt when you've got people standing in a queue, there's nothing I'm going to be able to massively do about the fact they're going to be standing in a queue, because the point of this is that if this thing is popular enough, then they'll want to stand in the queue. So how can I make the most of them standing in the queue? And that is by making this as attractive and as pretty as possible. So here I am doing, and the key to this stuff I think is when you're doing the copy and paste is to make sure you go back. You'll see what I do in a second is you start to then change it all from being uniform, because otherwise you start to see the patterns where I've cut and paste stuff. So just chigging some of these about, moving some of these these bits of foliage around just to make sure it stays looking realistic, a little bit more rustic. You can still see some patterns, but I'm pretty happy with that. Then I went through, took out the path. This actually took quite a lot of time, quite a lot of fiddling about. So the usual sort of what you see in the video is a brief speed through of me working out how to do this, because I'm not particularly, as I said, I'm not particularly familiar with how some of these things work. So I think I'm going to get better. I know at the moment I'm cutting a lot out, and these probably could be quicker, not in terms of the speed, but in terms of the length of the videos. I think I could probably make them a bit quicker, but I'm getting there. And a part of that is just, you'll see that I'm doing stuff like I haven't really got my head around the hotkeys and stuff, so you see that I'm clicking that little tick box every time, which I think is just, it isn't necessary. Well, no, it isn't necessary. The hotkeys will do that, but you just got to get your head around it. So yeah, replacing this pathway with a bit of a deck, because you only get stone pathways, stone queues at the moment, which I've seen from watching other people's videos, that isn't the case in Planet Coaster. So I'm hoping that at some point fairly soon we'll get some new textures for these, because if you're elevating a path, obviously an elevated path, the likelihood of an elevated path being brick is pretty is less likely to be the case than being wood. So putting a bit of wall in, all of this stuff changes actually. So this is, most of this is just me showing you the process that I'm going through, really, rather than necessarily the finished product, because I do go back and change quite a lot of it in order to make the platform bigger and actually reorientate the whole station in order to do that. But these are quite cool. Again, these little, I think most of the stages I'm at, definitely at this stage when I was recording this one, is really just learning the pieces. Like I don't know half of these pieces, so sussing out whether those can work, like stacked on top of each other, for example. I think these were all individual. Yeah, they were all individual beams that I then grouped up together to make these little fences, which come out really well, which look really nice, little sort of mini version of the wall back there as well. So yeah, at some point fairly soon, yeah, there we go. So we're starting to put in the actual block work. So most of this is not really much of a plan, as it probably maybe it looks like there's not much of a plan. Like I've got a bit of a vision in my head, but some of these things start to come together as I'm like, okay, well, people are going to be standing in the line. It rains a lot on this map, because I guess part of the biome. I'm assuming actually the weather's different in other biomes. This doesn't work. I'll change this in a second. But yeah, I'm sort of thinking to myself, okay, originally, I don't know, I can't really actually remember if originally my plan was to cover this over, but yeah, it probably becomes apparent because of the number of times that I get rained on while I'm building it, that we do actually need to have some shelter. Again, because I'm guessing this makes a difference, but the volume of people that are going to be, if you think about the number of people that end up standing in the queue in the zoo, if I can make sure those people are happy as much as they can be while they're standing in that queue by keeping them drying and it being beautiful surroundings, etc., then I'll benefit from that as overall in the zoo. Yes, there's a few different little weird, I don't know what I'm doing there, but so there's a few different weird little nuances to this. I'm having to do a double wall there in order just to get those textures okay. But some of this, as I said, some of this I changed, so that ends up being too tight. I feel like it's too tight for the monorail, the actual pods to get through, or the carriages, sorry, to get through. So I'll go back and change that at some point in the future. What am I doing now? Yeah, just covering up some of these bits. So I think again, I think one of the keys, and I actually quite like this, I think I said this in the last episode, is that so having an idea of what you're going to do is all well and good, but it's being able to kind of accommodate to the little bits you have to hide. So it's sort of, for me, sometimes it's like, don't worry too much about there being little weird bits that stick out, because it just gives you just have to find a creative way of getting around that. I'm actually here experimenting with the idea of can I get all of this flooded as well, which, as I said, I do manage in the next episode on the next bit of this path. This is all supposed to be the wetlands. I couldn't for the life of me figure out why it wouldn't let me do that. I don't know if it's because of this back. So you'll see it behind. So we're now on the flip side of the station, but behind there I've got a staff path that goes underneath. Not because I have a destination in mind yet, but just so I'm not blocking it off. So here's me. Yeah, so this is a good point actually. So I think this is something that you definitely start to learn as you build more in the game. So initially I'm like, okay, I fussed over getting those wooden floors to try and make the curve of the path, and then eventually I get into my head that I can just hide it away and not to worry about that. So I think that's the key, is to learn. What I'm learning is not to fuss over the perfection of things too much, because generally the layering actually covers it up. So yeah, just putting in some, again, a little bit of mulch, because why wouldn't you? And this is all just, again, extension of that flower bed, and just to make it as rich as I can and as attractive as I can, but also just to hide some of the sight lines and some of the things that are going on in the building. Bit of stonework, just to get a start of this on. I think I'm always going to be tinkering. I mean, it's in my nature slightly anyway that I'm a bit of a tinkerer. So generally when I do something, probably most of the effort in doing it is what you end up seeing or you end up with is probably version 5 or 6 of what I actually first did. So yeah, I think this path, I'm just trying to think actually, this path does have a destination. Which you probably won't see until about episode 4 or 5. But so yeah, just on that note, guys, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe, because you'll see more of these. And as I said, I think they'll get quicker and I'll get better. Generally, fairly all right with the quality that I'm producing. The things that I'm producing, I think, are okay. I think they'll definitely get better. This isn't too bad, but there's already stuff that I've done that I'm like way more happy than where I was at this stage. This is probably about 2 or 3 weeks old actually, and I think I said in the last episode, part of my challenge has been just finding natural points to stop and go, okay, that's an episode there, because I'm still not overly experienced in my recordings. What are we doing now? Yeah, even noticing now, I'm glad I took that wall out, because I think I'm starting to spot it there. Just the repeating patterns of that wall just looks a bit fake. I could have covered it up and hidden it, but I think I actually decided to take it out eventually. What we do now, so I think we've basically got the gist of the path. This was definitely something I actually learned from the research centre, or from the animal hospital, was to make sure you build the path first, because it's a lot easier to build the path and then build a building around it than it is vice versa. So we're putting a roof on now. And so I've spent a little bit of time with this roof, but I'm still not entirely happy with it. I think some of these things, like I have a plan for what actual station is, what the station will look like, and I think the station will probably be on the other side of the entrance plaza, because I want to make sure, as I said, that I can ferry the guests around, because I don't want to have to walk into the station too far, into the park too far in order to get transport to other areas. So just going, what are we doing now? Yeah, so what I would have done, I'm just having a look, see that's station's still in the same position. I don't think I actually move it in the recording. I think I just did it off camera. So look, obviously I've put it too close there. You can already see it's too close, and I'm already having issues with getting the wall in and the roof in and stuff there. That will work in, I think would make sense in the station, because then you could have an idea that the station, the train runs off of the map, if you know what I mean. So people could potentially, we could pretend that people come in. I know in Sandbox mode you can put in different spawn points, so people could actually spawn at your station if you wanted them to. So I fussed for way too long over this actually, and this again is something I'm sure I'll get better at, but just trying to make this this roof structure look like it's convincingly supported. I spent way too long on it. I'm pretty sure I just need to watch some Silverette videos or somebody else's videos where they do this a lot better, and probably don't fuss too much about making it look like it's actually supported by beams and things. But it's I found it quite challenging. I mean, it's because I think this is part of this is the flip side of the idea of build the path first and build the building around it, is that when you do that you're going to have a problem making sure that actually the structure and the roof makes sense and it's easy to put together. So I've got some weird little eccentricities in this roof that I probably didn't need to have if I'd made it a bit more uniform. So we were just putting in more of these beams, putting in some more trims and things. As I said, I spent way too long on this, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not getting. I think I could definitely be doing more content if I was spending less time mithering over those sorts of things. Oh, I just did a little camera, just did a little freak out there, but it's basically ready now to open. I keep ending up in the water for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but camera just keeps flipping me over there. It seems to be when you're underneath a roof or inside a structure, it has a little freak out sometimes. These are, again, I'm like building regulations have kicked in, and I'm thinking that like these things should actually have support lintels and that sort of stuff. That I'm like, now looking back at it, I think. I mean, obviously, when I was doing it, I'm thinking I was caught up in the moment and thought this was definitely important. But now looking at it, thinking probably could have done this a lot easier. But hey ho, all of these things I'm learning, and I think we'll probably fuss and make the pointless decisions going onwards. So who knows? Anyway, right, so we'll get to something else in a second. So the gist of these episodes is pretty much going to be, I'm going to try and keep it down to one particular thing that I'm doing and not charge off too much. I haven't massively decided what I'm going to do in terms of my content, and I may well I think I'll probably end up having some of these kind of long form episodes, and then things where I just do like shorter little focus tutorials or something. But who am I to give tutorials at the moment? There's plenty of people doing that who know way more about the game and the Planet Coaster's ways, which is largely inherited by Planet Zoo. I think there are some things that I've learned that I'm not seeing anybody else doing yet, though, so I might do some stuff on those little bits and pieces. In fact, there's not really an episode on monorails. I didn't consciously make a decision to do that, but it just was the way it turned out. Right, so my plan to drop the terrain here didn't really work. I mean, it would have worked, but I couldn't flood it with water. So I thought it'd be cool for it the carriage to sort of emerge from this rock area, so come out from sort of between a bit of a cliff edge, and just to give it something interesting. I mean, the ground textures are cool, but rock's definitely more interesting. bit of a save, bit of a cheeky save. You've got to have a cheeky save every now and again, otherwise the game may well get lost, which terrifies me. I haven't had that yet, actually. I definitely had it in the beta quite a few times, and they've seemed to have done an amazing job in recovering from that. So yeah, just I think I actually feel like I'm too bad at the rock work already, which I was quite oh, this is me doing a bit of a terrain wobble. Yeah, I think the key, I don't know if this is right, but I always sort of think that so when you're doing rocks and things like that, they shouldn't look like they're all just kind of blended in together, because these are boulders. They're not so the way that they're put together is that they're boulders. So boulders wouldn't, they wouldn't all be consistent, or you need to make sure you're kind of supporting them and stuff like that. Like that obviously can't stand there, so I have to put something underneath it. And things would be like naturally big and small rocks blended in together. It takes a bit more time to do that, but I think the detail does pay off, actually. And I've just finished a project which you'll see probably in about episode 6 or 7 or something, which will be in a couple of weeks from now, where I've built a big kind of rock feature, and I'm happy with the way that's turned out. But it's the same sort of principle, is that big and small. I must watch, I know Mike Sheets has been doing some videos. I've seen him doing a couple of collabs, and he's a genius on these sorts of things, and so I'm going to take note from what he's done. But I think what he's done is it's sort of this layering principle, and make sure you're not overdoing it. I think that's always that's the key, is knowing when to stop and knowing not to put too many layers in. And so just a bit of foliage now. Everybody loves a bush. Ala Corrales has just started recording, actually, Planet Zoo. If you haven't seen that, go and check out the master himself, Corrales, the master of the bush. Can you say that? I guess I can say that. I've said it now, so what are you going to do? But yeah, so this was just getting some textures in, getting some foliage in. This is actually my favourite bush. This, I can't remember what it's called, like Scaeola or something like that. Probably just saw it flash up. But it's really great for like ground textures or Scaevola bush. So it's all supposed to be the tropical area. So I'm looking at what am I looking at there? So I just kept doing this idea of little bits, plants popping out from between the gaps in the rocks and stuff. Yeah, and there's a good example of like the position of the track. Actually, you can see where the mechanic is there. The track is just over his head. So I didn't actually realise this at the time. And again, this is not really knowing the game that well. And I'm sure this is obviously a thing. This is a Planet Coaster thing, but they do this really cool thing where where people are walking underneath, they try and jump up and touch the track, or jump up the carriage as the track goes past. Oh, this is where a little bit of detail here. So, where those things are growing between the rocks, need a bit of dirt and stuff. So I just put some layers in there. So I think we're starting to get close to the end of the time lapse. I was pretty happy with this. It came out pretty well. I don't have an amazing bit of video at the end of this, because this is all basically, this is effectively a two-parter really, because this is part of the preamble to my saltwater crocodile enclosure or habitat. I'll use habitat. So I do all this, and then obviously, as I said, I go back and change the station, and I reorientate that so I can get a bigger platform. But yeah, so if you want to see the full effect of this with people going out, there is going to be a bit of footage at the end, but it is actually at night. So yeah, do come back for the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all that good stuff, and you'll see the progression of this zoo. And it's, as I say, I'm pretty happy with where it's gone so far. This bit so far is the gateway to the wetlands area. I think I call it wetlands. Yeah, I think I call it wetlands. So yeah, this station and the point of this train. Oh, here we go. We're about to go on the journey. So you'll see it come in. As I said, it's in the night, and it goes out as a starter. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. My name's Toves, and I shall catch you guys on the next one. Take it easy.